The sages of antiquity knew that energy was consciousness in different states. That is why for each manifestation was given a name, a personification and a corresponding image. Titans as primal energies with little control and aggressiveness were portrayed as rough-looking giants. The 12 Titans. The analogies and signs.
OCEANUS was the primordial vapor that allowed information to flow.
When Gaia was still burning and Uranus covered her like an opaque mantle, OCEANUS rose from the steam that enveloped the planet, allowing the passage of information. Primordial flow, Pisces sign.
If I modulate the flow here, the resonance pattern changes significantly.
The TETHYS wing demonstrates how the global water cycle is inextricably linked to our own circulatory health.
When the steam began to fall into unseen rivers, THETYS emerged as a liquid goddess. She was the one who guided the water. She taught the planet to breathe in cycles. Vital circulation, Cancer.
The nitrogen cycle appears stable, but look at the spike in the carbon data here.
Yes, the atmospheric exchange rate is accelerating.
From the encounter between steam and light, HYPERION opened his eyes. The primordial radiation, the ancestral photon that made the cosmos visible. Astral light, Leo.
What the ancients called the fire of Hyperion, we now recognize as biophotons, the ultra-weak light emissions that cells use to communicate and organize.
When the light found direction, THEIA emerged. It was the science of perception being born, the primordial perspective. THEIA, vision and transparency, Gemini.
What THEIA pioneered as primal transparency, we now replicate as light-manipulating metamaterials.
As the sky rose and the earth stabilized, heavens raised the invisible column, COEUS, that separates the high from the low. The gravitational structure, the backbone of the space, celestial axis, Capricorn.
The axis of COEUS is what we now study as geomagnetism and angular momentum, the invisible forces that keep our planet stable and oriented in the void.
When the light found meaning, PHOEBE descended like a luminous arrow. It was the intelligence of complex systems, the emerging forecast. PHOEBE, prophecy and intuition, Sagittarius.
What the myth calls the prophecy of Phoebe, we now investigate as quantum non-locality and predictive coding, the brain's ability to sense patterns.
With the sky structured and the light oriented, CRIUS raised his arm and set the first rhythm, dividing time into cycles. The astronomical periodicity, the metronome of the cosmos. Zodiacal rhythm, Aries.
What the myth calls CRIUS zodiac is what we now study as chronobiology and celestial mechanics.
When the rhythm threatened to become chaos, THEMIS landed between heaven and earth like a living scale. The symmetry, the law of conservation, dynamic equilibrium. Universal order, Libra.
What THEMIS represents is the symmetry of the universe, the fundamental constants that keep reality from dissolving into entropy.
From the depths of the earth and the silence of heaven, MNEMOSYNE rose, guarding every vibration, the file, the memory, the persistence of patterns. MNEMOSYNE, cosmic memory, Scorpio.
What MNEMOSYNE represents is information persistence, the way our DNA remembers the environment of our ancestors and our ancestors.
I am.
When memory became a mirror, IAPETUS stood up as the first, I. The emergence of self-awareness, the system that refers to itself. The primordial subject, Aries, second expression.
What Geppetto represents is the executive function and self-awareness, the biological hardware that allows us to distinguish self from other.
With the I, awake, RHEA reached out and shaped the matter. Morphogenesis, biology being born, the first sensory manifestation. Taurus sign.
What RHEA represents is the self-assembly of life, the precise moment when organic molecules organize themselves into a boundary that we call a cell.
Behold KRONUS, born of Gaia and Uranus.
When heaven and earth were completely separated, KRONUS wielded the blade of time and severed the last link between them, freeing Uranus and establishing space-time. Entropy, irreversibility and the beginning of history. Time and separation, Virgo.
What KRONUS represents is the thermodynamic arrow of time, the fundamental law that energy only flows in one direction.
From this new scenario, the primordial energy slows down and transforms into matter, giving rise to the physical universe and the beginning of the mineral kingdom.
We are clear of the entrance now.
Keep it steady. angling towards pedestal 4.